Welcome back, everyone. We're excited to have you on today's live. And if you're catching the replay, we're equally as excited to have you joining us. Today's topic is MCAS and mold, fungal colonization of the sinuses. And this is our monthly practitioner panel. So we'll be joined by Alex Bingham, Kimberly Quirk, and our special guest today is Dr. Dennis. So if you are joining us, please feel free to drop in the comments. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We really love to see how wide this community is around the globe. Our normal disclaimers before we get going. This presentation is for informational and educational purposes. Oh, I don't know where my slide just went. That's interesting. Hold on, guys. We were trying to stream on Instagram today, and it looks like that messed with our slides. All right, let's try that again. This session is for informational and educational purposes. This presentation is not meant to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent illness. Be sure to discuss any health recommendations with your healthcare provider. And as an affiliate reminder, some of the links we share during this presentation are on our website, our affiliate links, which means MCAS360 may make a very small commission. If you purchase through the link, we only recommend products that we love and use personally or use in the MCAS360 practice. All right, so today we're going to be talking about what is fungal sinus colonization, how we approach it in the MC360 Clinic, and we're going to provide some options for those who need more, which Dr. Dennis will go into. And then if we have time, we will do a Q&A. But Dr. Dennis has so many amazing stories that he's going to share with us today. So it would be really helpful if you did have questions to put them in ahead of time, and that way we can get to them as quick as possible. Just a reminder, only ask your question one time. And so only ask your question one time, keep it on the topic of sinus colonization, and no in-depth personal health questions. We're just unable to answer those at this time. Okay, so I'm gonna bring up our guests. We have Alex Bingham, Kimberly Quirk. These are our two lead practitioners here at MCAS360, and today's guest is Dr. Dennis, who we can see. Dr. Dennis, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can hear you.
How do we get to see me?
I am not sure. We're having some technical difficulties today, guys. Just hold on. I'm going to bring up your picture, and maybe
my picture's below your screen on my computer.
Yeah, I do. I have you on. Let me just try to remove you and bring you back real quick.
All right.
All right, you're still showing black. Is your camera on?
Yeah.
Do you mind stop sharing your screen real quick? I know our audience can't see it, but that may be part of the reason. And well, maybe.
Okay, here we go. I'll stop it.
All right. That did not solve it. All right, maybe Cam can help you in the background on that. I'm just going to mute you real quick, and I'm going to introduce you to our audience while that worked out. Okay, so Dr. Dennis is an Atlanta, Georgia board-certified ear, nose, and throat, or ENT surgeon trained at Johns Hopkins Hospital, which is one of the best hospitals in the world for the ear, nose, and throat instruction. He is now has more than 36 years experience in treating over 30,000 patients with sinusitis. Microbalance Health Products was founded 20 years ago to provide some of the same effective solutions Dr. Dennis offers his patients dealing with mold and mycotoxins. So Microbalance is the company that Dr. Dennis helped found, and we're going to share a little bit about his products a little later. And Catherine, thank you for asking. I cannot see him backstage on my end. I did in our test before we got started, and I don't know where he went.
I'm at the bottom of your screen on my screen, so my camera is working.
Yeah, I can't see you though, and or it doesn't look like our audience can see you. So we're gonna keep moving. Guys, this is the world we live in. We rely so much on technology, and then it doesn't always work. So while we continue to work with Dr. Dennis behind scenes to try and get him up here for you, I'm going to pass it over to Kimberly real quick to go over some introduction on fungal colonization.
All right. So yeah, today we're going to talk about the fungal sinus colonization. So what is it? I mean, it's when fungus that you're breathing in through the mold that's seeded into your sinuses. So this is something we commonly see in clinic. So some of the fungi that you'll see there are normal parts of your body, like candida, which can be overgrown. And then that needs to be addressed if it's overgrown. But other fungus that we've maybe become exposed to environmentally, like aspergillus, can grow inside you, seed and grow inside you, and continue to break down tissue and release mycotoxins inside you. So that's why sometimes in clinic we see people like, oh, I'm out of mold, but why am I still sick, right? Or I'm out of mold and I've detoxed some mycotoxins, but why, you know? And it's kind of like wherever you go, there you are, right? You're bringing it with you. Jamie, can you do next slide for me? So why is it important to address the sinuses? So you can inhale those mold spores, which can colonize your sinuses. Your sinuses and your brain are right next to each other. So think about that, right? So this can cause neuroinflammation, especially. And I know Dr. Dennis is going to talk a lot about that. You can also swallow that postnasal drip, right? It's continuously dripping down, traveling to your gut, and this can cause dysbiosis in your gut, leaky gut. I've also seen it cause SIBO, that people are like, why doesn't my SIBO keep coming back? Well, it keeps getting reseeded because we haven't addressed the sinuses. And so when the sinuses are colonized, you just have a continuous factory producing mold and mycotoxins from the top down. So you got to sort of think higher up what's kind of coming down the pike, and that colonization can kind of keep you stuck and keep you sick.
Alex, would you mind going over a little bit of how we approach this in the clinic?
Yeah. So, welcome. We see the sinuses and the mold that colonizes sinuses as a critical aspect of the treatment to clear toxins and mold. And we use a number of different products, and there are two real issues that are happening with the mold growing in your sinuses. First of all, the mold is producing toxins, and you're going to absorb those toxins, and it's going to worsen your situation. Even if you get rid of the baseline mycotoxins that you had, you're going to get new ones. And the second thing is that this is growing in a mucus collection of biofilm, which protects the mold from the immune system, from supplements, from medications, and things like that. So we do use biofilm disruptors to disrupt the biofilm, making the mold more vulnerable to attack. We use things like xylitol, grapefruit seed extract, nano silver spray, EDTA, proteolytic enzymes, and things like that. Now, the silver is helpful in a number of ways. Studies have shown that it's antimicrobial, meaning that it's antibacterial. It's also antifungal. It also helps to break down biofilms. So we do use nasal sprays of silver. We use over-the-counter medications. One of the ones we use that will help for to break down biofilm is xylitol, which can be purchased as the original Xlear, Xlear. And we use antifungal supplements like the silver spray, the grapefruit seed extract. There are other effective herbal products, which would include things like golden seal, echinacea, and black walnut. And these sinus regimens usually take several months and need to be coordinated with binders and oral antifungals often. So in addition, as healthcare consultants, we're often able to help guide our clients to work with their licensed medical practitioners in the use of compounded prescription medications, such as nystatin, itraconazole, voriconazole, and amphotericin, as well as EDTA, to clear the sinuses of the mold colonization. Now, most of the people that we see will get better with these protocols. And some people need extra help. And for these people, they're going to need a more aggressive approach. So a referral to an ENT who with special training, such as Dr. Dennis, can be very helpful. And how can we tell who might be needing this more aggressive protocol? Well, if the person is delaying in their improvement, they're just not getting better. That's one way that we might look at it. They continue to have sinus symptoms, pressure in this area, blocked ears, vertigo, tinnitus, recurrent sinus infections, sinus headaches. These are all indications that you might want to see an ear, nose, and throat specialist.
All right, thank you, Alex, for that great overview. I am going to bring Dr. Dennis's up in just a second. Before we get going on that, Dr. Dennis, can you tell us a little bit about what got you interested in the sinuses and this approach that you kind of have specialized in now for over, I don't know, 30 years? That's pretty amazing.
I've got my desktop camera on, but it's my picture wasn't.
We can't see you, but we can hear you. So that's the important part. Yeah. So could you share a little bit about how you got started in this area?
Well, I've seen a lot of patients, and when you go to school, you're only in 3 months in each subject matter. So you don't see patients long enough to know that what you're doing is not working. So when you're in a private practice, you see them all the time. And so we had several patients that were always full of infection and pus. And we did everything you can think of, antibiotics, steroids, surgery, irrigation, everything. It didn't matter what we did, nothing ever worked. So this guy came in that had been sick for years, and his sinuses were totally pristine. And I knew it wasn't anything I'd done, because it didn't matter what I did, nothing ever worked. So I asked him, what have you been doing? He said, well, I went to the beach for 2 weeks. And then I knew it was environmental. And so then we figured out it was mold, and that's how it all started. And so if you get them out of mold, everything just clears up.
We are big supporters of getting out of the mold as part of stabilization, removing that environmental trigger. Before I bring your slides up, just behind the scenes, guys, I'm just going to help Dr. Dennis get his slides up before I bring it up. So I can see you're currently looking at us. Can you bring up your PowerPoint on your screen, Dr. Dennis? And then I'll help you share that real quick so that everyone can see the amazing case studies you have to share with us today.
Okay, so I've got my PowerPoint up, but it's not doing anything.
Yep, there we go. If you can make that bigger. So make that take up your whole screen, since we can see your screen. Yep, and then.
What about that? Is that better?
Yeah, we can see, if you can make that take up the whole screen, it will be less distracting for our audience.
Well, then I can't see the next slide.
Just PowerPoint. Yeah, so I'll bring it up and let's see. All right. Yeah, can you make PowerPoint take up the whole screen? It won't take away your slides on the side. You can just drag there we go. Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, so earlier before we went live, you were showing us some of these amazing cases. So I'd love to turn it over for you for about the next 15 minutes to kind of walk our audience through what you do as far as sinus fungal colonization goes.
Okay, so this picture, can you see my pointer?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so all this white stuff is candida inside the sinus. And this is the environmental mold place this patient had. So all the medical treatment was failing when he was in this kind of environment. Then he fixed the environment down to 4 colonies. And this is the same picture all the sinuses were cleared up. This white stuff is a light reflex, but the candida is gone. So that's a good example of what the environment does. This is a graphic representation. And this is the mold placed in the house of this person. This is a huge aspergillus fungus ball inside the sphenoid sinus. And this is the environmental air that the patient was in. And then this is what it looks like when you remove it all. This is a huge aspergillus fungus ball that was right here, right below the brain, and right here in this x-ray. And this is post-op. So this patient had, I'll just say what she's got.
This is patient Linda Stanley, who was noticed vertigo and cognitive dysfunction. Can you tell me what happened to you?
I was on an airplane on Thursday, flying 2 times that day, and later that night, early the next morning, started feeling dizzy, vertigo, fuzzy head, impact on my sinuses.
And then what happened to clear it up?
For today, when you did this procedure,
With amphotericin into the sinus.
it immediately cleared my head. No more vertigo, no more fuzzy thinking.
And this is what that looks like. It's putting amphotericin inside the maxillary sinus because she'd had surgery before. So that's just.
It doesn't look like that's showing up for us, that video.
Okay, so we'll go to the next thing. All right, so this is this patient's brain before we did that. This is acute EEG. So all the red is high voltage. That's why she was having all these symptoms of disorganized thought processes and so forth. This is about 30 minutes after we put the amphotericin in her sinuses. So this is a pretty dramatic change that you can see some objective data there. And then this is an example. This is called acute EEG. This is a picture of a sound, and when the brain hears the sound from the eardrum. So this line here is when the sound enters the drum, and then when the red and green line cross is when the brain has heard it. Normal is 300 milliseconds. This particular patient, the lines never cross, so the brain never really heard the sound. And then this one is 461. It crosses right here. So they have a delayed P300. That's why they have such a hard time absorbing what you're telling them. So that's why we have them write everything down, because the brain is not functioning properly. And then this is a patient that had, I'll give you her story, but this is tissue that was removed from her sinuses. The brown halo around the tissue is aflatoxin and ochratoxin. And the same toxins are in the tissue itself. So when we see the brown halo around the tissue in the SDA agar, it means it's a mycotoxin. This is a CT scan. It's not such a bad CT scan. Only a little stuff is in there, but this is what's really in there. So these toxins are going to the brain, and this is her experience.
My symptoms were suicidal depression as well as anxiety. My treatment was numerous SSRIs, tricyclic antidepressants, as well as SNRIs. I also received just under 20 electroconvulsive therapies to my brain to help to treat depression. I also was institutionalized for my condition, and I was considered to be treatment resistant. I recently just had sinus surgery with Dr. Dennis, and it has completely revolutionized my psychiatric condition. I am no longer experiencing any depression, nor am I experiencing the extreme anxiety. I feel as if he has saved my life, and I am no longer on any psychiatric meds. It is a complete miracle. Thank you, Dr. Dennis.
So that's another one. And so this is her brain before surgery. The high voltage is red. So this is before surgery. This is right after surgery. It's mostly gone, but this is after neurotherapy. So a lot of these patients have really bad OCD, and they can't get over it until you fix the rest of the brain. So this is after neurotherapy, which we recommend for a lot of these patients. So this is what each thing does. This is before any treatment. This is surgery. And this is neurotherapy. And then this is the tissue on the plate. The brown halo is trichothecines in this case. That's what it looks like inside the sinus on a CT scan. And that's what it looks like in surgery after you take it out. This thing right here is on this mold plate. So this is an example of what a normal piece of tissue looks like. It doesn't excrete the mycotoxins into the media. And this is, all these mold patients have brown halos around their tissue at about 3 days. This is a cyclone, what it looks like surgically. So you wash out each of 8 sinuses like that. And all this is fungus inside the ethmoid sinuses. This guy was a pilot and an attorney. And this is the day after surgery. So that's fine. Anyway, he had brain fog and now he doesn't. So let's see what happens. And then this guy had the left ear was almost deaf for 10 years. So the videos aren't working. I'm not sure why. Anyway, he got his hearing back. So this is the tissue we took out of his sinus, and it's got the brown halo around it. And these are the toxins that were, he had 4 mycotoxins in this tissue. Most of these patients have pituitary damage. So, and about 53% of them have growth hormone deficiency, damage to the anterior pituitary gland. They need to have growth hormone. Some of them need injectable. And so basically, there you go.
Wesley Baker, 6/25/18.
And then this is afterwards. So that's gone.
This is after treatment of mycotoxicosis.
So this is another one like that.
This is patient Mark Anderson on 1/16/24. He's got tremors in both hands and both legs.
This is him after surgery about 6 weeks.
About 3 weeks.
Now he had a good neurologist and he was on maximum medication on the first one. And this is him now. He couldn't walk very well before that, but this is what happens when you remove it from the sinuses. So this is him. His environment was high mold counts throughout his house. He moved out of the house, and this is what came out of the tissue. All that brown stuff is coming from this mucosal tissue into the brain. And we can show you how that works later. This guy was in a wheelchair for 2 years. This is Tim Green, fibromyalgia, muscle weakness. So then about 6 weeks later, this is what he looks like.
Hi, I'm Tim Green. I'm now living on the coast of North Carolina, and I'm living here on the water where there's no grass, no trees, just the breeze off the ocean, and I'm doing so much better. My health is tremendously better now because I'm living where there's a 0 mold count. That's made all the difference in the world in my health. I had severe headaches. I was in a wheelchair for over 2 years, living in the mountains of North Carolina where it rained all the time and there was mold and trees everywhere. And now living here where there's a 0 mold count. I'm healthy, I'm walking again, and praise God, life is good. Thank you, Dr. Dennis.
So this person had paralyzed one leg and paralyzed bladder and blind in the right eye. And blind in the right eye, but then she can't hardly stand up here.
This is Jennifer Parrish, who had
Oh, we're not seeing it.
in a trailer and has trouble walking. She has paralyzed left leg and inability to ventilate.
Yeah, Dr. Dennis.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, we just can't see that video for some reason.
Oh, can you see this one?
This is Jennifer
No,
Parrish.
turned black too.
No?
No.
Okay. Can you see this one?
Nope, can't see that one. But you've shown us some really amazing
Okay,
before and afters. Yeah.
so no more of it. Can you see this?
We can see that.
All right, so this is the ability to image mycotoxins in the tissues in the CT scans and MRI scans with artificial intelligence software. So this isn't published yet, but this is a test tube of gliotoxin with an MRI scan, a CT scan of this. It's a black substance in there. So we biopsied this and we know the gliotoxins in this area. So it's got the black stuff right here. So you can see it in the sinus CT scan. And then this is a MRI scan of the brain with severe migraine headaches from a colloid cyst in the left ventricle brain. It's white stuff here. This is a MRI scan of gliotoxin in a test tube. It's white like water. Then we run, this software runs about 7,000 algorithms in about 0.6 seconds until you can see something in the test tube. So it's blue with red spots. So gliotoxin in this test tube is blue with red spots. So you run the same one on his MRI scan, and you find out that this colloid cyst was a really gliotoxin, which the body had walled off so it wouldn't damage the brain further. And then this is an MRI scan here. All this white stuff is infarcts at the junction of the gray and white matter. But look what's really wrong. She's got a lot more stuff because she had gliotoxin in the urine. So we used a gliotoxin MRI scan, CT scan to image this. So it's all black. And then this is a pituitary tumor, this black thing. This patient had large secretion of cortisol and gained 140 pounds in about 3 months and was going to die if you didn't get the tumor out. So we sent her to the neurosurgeon. He took the tumor out through the nose after I cleaned all the sinuses out. And then we got a piece of the tumor, and I assayed it twice on a mass spectrometry to see which mycotoxins were in the tumor. 11 mycotoxins were in there. So she had gliotoxin in the urine too, this black stuff. So look how much toxin she has. So she has all this black stuff represents at least 11 mycotoxins. And there it is in the pituitary gland. And then this is this is the result of the testing of the tissue from the pituitary showing 11 mycotoxins, tested it 2 different times to make sure it was correct. So there's 11 mycotoxins in that tumor. So it's not ever just one, it's a pool of many. And this is what she looked like before surgery with weight gain. And this is after surgery.
That's so incredible.
And so this is a CT scan. You can see there's something wrong in here, but the reason it's there is because the mycotoxins are there. All this black stuff is mycotoxins. So gliotoxin and trichothiocene happen to be black in this algorithm. And then this to show, this is MRI scan of the brain. This guy really needed surgery. He's got a huge pituitary tumor, but he didn't want the surgery. So we tested our methods of getting the toxin out of the brain with oxygen, glutathione, NAC, liver cleanse, and Intramax. And of course, you got to give them antifungals too. So this is a year later right here. So we can get it out of the brain with that methodology. So that's really all the slides.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing those.
You want me to remove those, or
I can do that for you.
okay?
Thanks. I'm sorry we still can't see you, but this is great. We have enough time for a live Q&A, but before we jump into that, I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the EC3 products from Microbalance. So I brought that slide up for you. If you can see our screen again.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we use the environmental products are really important. The candles will remove all the mycotoxins and mold from the air in 2 hours in the 12 by 12 space. And we Dennis Hooper at Real Time Labs have proved that was true. And so this is good for travel, or if you've got a situation where you can't get out right away, just leave the candle going. And this is a fogger. Fogger is kind of the best thing. We actually use a fogger in the office. When patients come in and they're real moldy, we fog the patient, put a gown on them, fog the gown, and I put a gown on and use oxygen so I don't get any more exposure. So you put this EC3 in there and dilute it with water, and then it'll shoot this out 30 feet in a fine mist. So you can breathe it and get it all over your body or do your whole house with it. You don't put it down, you just hold it and fog everything. It's a quick way to decontaminate a house or rooms or cars or anything. And it works really fast. So you're not trying to wet it, you're trying to mist it. And the laundry additive is really, that's the most popular thing, because you put this in your regular detergent in there and add the EC3 laundry additive. And that additive will remove the mold and mycotoxins from the clothes. So it's safe. It doesn't, it has no harm to anyone. That's the main thing. You got another slide?
Yeah, I think so. So we just wanted to let everyone know where they could find you after today. If you're new to people in our audience, I believe that a good portion of people who come to us have definitely heard of you. But if you haven't, you can find Dr. Dennis at Microbalance Health Products. That's his company with the products that he just showed. And you can find those products at masscell360.com/EC home, because we are in full transparency an affiliate of his products. And then on social media, you can find him at Microbalance Health. And then his clinical office is Dr. Dennis at AtlantaENT.com. So Dr. Dennis, do you have anything to add before we go into our live Q&A?
Well, I wish those other things would work, but the other videos are pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
The basic thing is the patient has two responsibilities that I can't fix. One is your air, and then add to that the car and the washer. The washing machines need to be a Speed Queen TC5. It's a top loader with a spindle. The top loaders without the spindle and all the front loaders are full of fungus eventually. So then you're sleeping in it and you're wearing it. That's one thing. And then the car, if it's an older car, they're all full of fungus, even if it's a pristine car. And the reason is, you got the AC on, you're sucking in outside air into the coil box to give you cold air inside. So all these mold spores are coming into a wet coil box. And over the years, it just totally infiltrates everything. So those are kind of blind spots for people, and they know their house is bad and they forget the washing machine in the car. So those two things are kind of low-hanging fruit. You just got to really look at those and take care of them.
Do you recommend fogging cars?
Yeah, you can fog the car, but remember the source, unless it's been wet inside, is the HVAC system in the car. Mm-hmm. So you can fog it and you can put the EC3 into the system. It's good for a few days, but then of course it's such a big volume as it comes back. So you'd have to keep doing it. And when the car gets a lot of age on it, it's best just to change it out. Now the EC3 will be helpful as an interim measure, but it's not a long-term solution.
Yeah, we say that even just for the house part, fogging's not a remediation solution. So
yeah, you got to get the 6 feet of water out of the basement first.
Yeah. Alex and Kim, do you have anything to add to remarks on Dr. Dennis's presentation? Something new you learned? Anything to share? Oh, Alex, you're muted. You want me to unmute? You got
One
it.
thing I was wondering, Dr. Dennis, most of the people that we see with, we suspect, colonization have not had sinus surgery. And what is your opinion on using nasal sprays versus an atomizer, which can mist in medication?
The atomizer is better, but some people can't tolerate it or they have problems with it. The spray is okay, is not as good. I think that the chief thing to do on either one of them is you close the opposite nostril. And when you actuate the sprayer, you inhale. And that gets it into the sinuses. That's really key. If you do it passively, it doesn't work as well. And on both situations, whether it's the sprayer or the nebulizer. Now the nebulizer is much better because it makes a fine mist and you suck it in to all your sinuses. Now, ultimately, if you have it in your frontal sinuses, you got to do the upside down drops. So you got to actually get on all fours and put your head down at 90 degrees and put a dropper in the roof of your nose and then drop that in and then do the inhale. Then you can get to the posterior ethmoids and the frontal sinuses with that position change. But otherwise, you'll never reach the frontals. So, yes, all these things work to a certain extent. But remember, you're breathing 3,000 gallons of air a day. So if you wash out with 8 ounces twice a day, that's not going to work if your air is bad. So instead of getting hung up on all these side streets of what the treatment is, focus first on making sure that your air is 100% good. Then all this stuff works. Otherwise, nothing works,
Yeah, I'll reiterate that very much so. It's what we see. We see people getting so stuck in, in their environment where they're just getting re-exposed, and the things keep coming back. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the hardest piece, of all this business is trying to get the patient to do the environment right. So we use a couple of companies that do a really good job, but sadly, the teaching of remediation is flawed because it doesn't have the patient in mind. It just takes the ratio between outside air and inside air, and then they make up what is considered clean air. And it has nothing to do with clean air. So the numbers are flawed. They're too high for these kind of patients. And so they come up with the house is fine, and it's not really for this particular patient. So we need to get numbers that are based on human health for the sickest individuals, so everybody's okay, not just 80%. And then the way the remediation goes, you got people who aren't well informed teaching people who aren't well informed, so you never get anywhere. Unfortunately, I haven't seen a good remediator do everything correctly. Now they do some good things, but then they do some bad things from a human health standpoint. So that's why I had to get involved and get a couple of companies to do what I wanted them to do. So I use the CT scans and the endoscopic exam to determine whether air is okay. And we don't have that advantage in remediation companies. So it has to be exactly right. And what we find out is it's less than 50,000 particles per tenth of a cubic foot is where the sweet spot is. And then you can use the VOC meter too, and it's got to be very low. I think the best advice for people before you rent or buy someplace, do mold plate testing, and then before you sign on the dotted line, get a mold dog. Mold dogs are pretty great. They can miss stuff, but they don't very often. If they point, there's something there. And so that way you don't purchase something that you're going to have to spend a lot of money on. You don't make mistakes. You can get an inspector with sometimes some are good, some are bad, but mold dog doesn't lie, so they cost about $1,000 to do that, which a lot less than an inspector charges, and they don't miss stuff usually. I mean, that's the best advice I can give people. You just got to spend time getting the air right, and then some of these EC3 products are helpful, but now there's ionizers that are helpful too. That one's called it's a TC5, and what it does is it puts out 1 trillion ions per second, and it doesn't make ozone hydroxyl. They make this in Israel, this thing. I actually have a picture of it. I don't know. I'm not.
I was gonna say we can't see your screen anymore. I know one of the questions that's coming in is whether or not like the sinus surgery is something that everyone needs.
No.
Yeah.
Everyone doesn't need it. There are certain people who when you just see them the first time, you know they're going to need surgery because it's so bad.
Mm.
But some people on the other side, they'll have normal CT scans and a high positive urine, and then they have a low. We just do what's your energy score? 10's normal. These will have a below a 5 energy, and then cognition will be below a 5 with 10 being normal. If they have severe cognition issues and they have a normal CT scan, and then they've done at least 2 months of rigorous medical therapy that we put them on, and they're not any better after the pituitary has been adjusted, after they're on hormone therapy and all that stuff, then they need surgery. So there's a group of patients who have a normal CT scan who actually need surgery. It's not that many, but it happens. So you can't rely just on the CT. You got to look at the whole patient and look at the numbers. So basically, if you're doing maximum medical therapy and you're not moving the needle on your cognition and on your energy, you need surgery.
Great. I'd love to go into some questions from the audience now. So just a reminder, we have some amazing ones that have been coming in. But if you just thought of one, feel free to put it up. Please keep them on the topic of sinus colonization. Only submit your question once, and please know that we're unable to answer in-depth health questions. Okay. So I think Alex or Dr. Dennis might have mentioned this one. Julia is wondering, does amphotericin B work as a nasal spray for nasal mold colonization?
I use amphotericin B frequently. Well, I did in my private practice. As a consultant at Mass Cell 360, we don't prescribe, but we do work with clients, practitioners, and give advice and things like that on it. The amphotericin B can work as both a nasal spray or as an atomizer, but you have to use a biofilm disruptor along with it because it can't fully penetrate the biofilm.
Dr. Dennis, do you have anything to add? Or
I know about the biofilms, but one of the slides I have shows a visible biofilm. It's throughout the whole nose. And all we did is do amphotericin. We did setting nose washes with sensor drops, and then put them on amphotericin nebulization, and all of it went away. The biofilm. So without the film breaker. Now I think the whole thing is the reason that the biofilm is there is because the fungus causes the immune reaction to the fungus causes pits in the lining. When the eosinophil hits the fungal spore and releases major basic protein, it makes a pit in the lining microscopically. Then mucus gets in the pit, and then the mucus starts overgrowing bacterial colonies. That's why you get the long-term Marcons and all that. Well, Marcons is in the nose and everybody. It's just it's not resistant. It's resistant to antibiotics. But if you remove the fungus, then you remove the cause of the pitting. They heal, and then you don't have a lab upon which to build the microbiofilm. You see, so that's the key. If you can get them out of mold and get the if you got an overgrowth of bacteria, you got to treat the bacteria and the mold together. If you got pus in there, so if you treat the both of them, and you've got a good environment, so they're not having the immune reaction constantly, the biofilm will be disrupted without a film buster. Now, I'm not against any of the biofilm busters. Don't get me wrong here. They have their place, but the reason the film is there is because of the immune reaction. So if you remove the fungus, then you remove the cause of the film.
Thank you. We do have a few questions about MARCONs, so I'm just going to throw those up real quick. Kim is asking, does this go along or is that separate?
Yeah, MARCONs is there all the time. It's like, see, think of it like this way. Like E. coli is normal for the colon, right? Well, MARCONs is just a antibiotic-resistant staph. So staph is in everybody's nose. It's just that all these patients have had on and off antibiotics. That's why they got MARCONs. But MARCONs, if you scope somebody, they have no inflammation or pus, they do not need MARCONs treatment. First of all, it's not going to work anyway, long term. It'll work for 10 minutes, as long as you use the spray. Then it'll get resistant to those two. You got to use 2 or more antibiotics that are structurally different for this. But I rarely see a lot of pus in there. So yes, if it's purulent, you need to treat it. But if it's not, you don't.
Great. And here's another one.
If I can add one more thing to the MARCONs, I have experienced treating hundreds of people that I did MARCONs tests on. And what I found was that there wasn't much correlation between the symptoms that people had and the MARCONs. In other words, they might have a positive MARCONs, might treat them with the multi-antibiotic resistant MARCONs with a couple antibiotics. They feel a lot better. I repeat the MARCONs and it's just the same or it's worse. Sometimes people feel worse and the MARCONs is gone. I really think it's the fungi that are the key element in the treatment.
That's right, because they're what caused the immune reaction when the eosinophil comes in. So we have some photographs showing that. Basically, when you destroy the cilia, you then cause chronic mucus pitting, which is the food trough for all the bacteria. So that's why the biofilm forms, because of the fungus. If you get rid of the fungus, you don't have a biofilm. Yeah.
All right, so we have 2 questions along with the lines of children, and I don't know if you work with children at all, Dr. Dennis, but if a young child is unable to take the Citra Drops nasal spray, what are your recommendations? Can it be nebulized into nasal passages?
Sure. You can use Citra Drops, or you can use amphotericin or voriconazole in a nebulizer. And if they won't let you, put it in their nose, just get a nebulizer that is like a mask and have them breathe through the nose. Mm-hmm. That'll get it in there. But you still need to be able to have a little child's earbud syringe like you'd use for an infant, and gently rinse it out with saline, rinse the nose out. Mm-hmm. If you don't rinse it out, it doesn't work as well. You need to clean the chalkboard before you paint it, Mm-hmm. So because then your drugs will get in and they won't get trapped in the mucus, and they'll actually work. So it's hard for a child to irrigate it, but you can talk with a child and you can usually get them to do stuff, especially if you help them.
Yeah, and along the lines of children, and we can reword this to just talk about, not just sensitive children, but mast cells in general. People who have mast cell activation syndrome who are coming to the MC360 Clinic are more likely to be sensitive to supplements in general. So have you found this in your practice, or maybe Alex and Kimberly can talk about it from a clinical perspective when someone's super sensitive?
Well, if you look, mast cell activation, you always want to ask, what is the antigen that's activating the mast cell? In this case, it's fungus. So once you get rid of the fungus, you stop the mast cell activation, but the problem is the fungus makes you sensitive to many other things. It's the master antigen. So once you get a fungal exposure, you get a bunch of food allergies, all kinds of environmental allergies, because your system's already revved up, highly sensitive, got high eosinophil count, everything's waiting for the next thing to enter and to get allergic to that. When you remove the fungus from the patient and the environment, a lot of those other allergies will go away. it's not everything, but it's massively different. And some people get off allergy shots just because they stop breathing fungus, you know.
Yeah.
So just look at mast cell activation, and the master activator is fungus.
Yeah, we do see that in clinic. We say at least 95%, if not more, percent of our clients have mold toxicity.
Yeah, I think too that before we can really talk about the antifungals and using the antifungals, that if the mold and the fungi are causing the mast cell activation, you've got to suppress that reaction before you can move forward with bringing toxins out of the body, because bringing the toxins out is going to trigger mast cell reactions. And one of the things that we do is to help calm provide mast cell support so that you can go beyond. And this is not just with supplements or medications, but also to calm the nervous system, which even in kids can be overstimulated and contributing to the problem. It goes way beyond today's talk, but I think that guiding treatment for the nervous system and the mast cells before you jump into fungal eradication or removal.
Yeah, and if a child is experiencing this, it's most likely that the adult is either passing it on through the placenta and breast milk, or they've all lived in a home together. And so the parent's also experiencing that. And to go to the nervous system piece, children need parents to be calm and regulated. And if the parent's not calm and regulated, then the child's not going to be able to kind of handle those next steps either. So we have to get the whole family on board, but it's often that the parents see it in the children first because the child's detox pathways aren't as developed and advanced yet. So just keeping it in mind that if you see a child dealing with this, we know it's hard as a parent because you're the caregiver, but you need to also take care of yourself. Okay, so this is a great question, Angie, and not just the UK in general, but like more generalized. How do we bring up the subject of mold colonization of the sinuses as a potential cause for chronic sinus congestion, pain, and bleeding to a conventional ENT consultant? So, Dr. Dennis, you're very specialized in this area, but are you finding that your colleagues are being more susceptible or more open to this being a root cause for their
No.
Okay. You have any suggestions on how they can bring it up?
This is the strange thing about this. So in 1999, Mayo Clinic, not a lightweight place, wrote 23 papers showing beyond the shadow of a doubt that fungus was a major cause of chronic sinusitis, 93% of the time, just 93%, that's all. So now, after all those papers are written, it's like it never happened. Everybody still thinks the earth is still flat. They're all done. Yes, it's flat. And so I don't know how to break through that. The papers show that when you incubate the white cells of patients with chronic sinusitis with fungus, like especially Alternaria, which is the most antigenistic fungus, they secrete 3 inflammatory mediators. The white cells do: interleukin 5, interleukin 13, and interferon gamma. That's what causes the pits in the lining and the secondary bacterial infections. So if you don't address the fungus, you're never going to get long-term results from chronic sinusitis. You're just going to keep chasing it with antibiotics and steroids, which long-term is not going to work, and you have a lot of resistance. And that's what MCAS is resistance from all these antibiotics you're getting. So one of the things, I don't think they read the article, but one of the things that they say as an argument against mold being the major antigen is that we have mold, but it doesn't represent the major cause, because we colonized tested all these people with colony growing out mold from their nose, and we found out that the ones that were not sick had mold in their nose, and the ones that were sick had mold in their nose. So it can't be mold. That was their conclusion. But then they skipped over the whole immunology test, showing why that was. 20% of the population reacts to it with 3 inflammatory mediators. That's why they have it and the other group does not. You see? So they use the wrong analogy. Yes, there are people who are in mold and who do not get chronic sinusitis because they do not react to it. And so 80% don't react, 20% do. So their conclusion is the other 20% don't exist. So I don't think you're going to be able to change that if they're not going to read the article. And it's really good first class work that all these articles are. But they still argue about it. And most of my specialty doesn't believe mold is the cause of chronic sinusitis, even after all that was done. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I was going to argue that to answer Angie's question, she could show this presentation to her ENT, final conventional ENT, and show them the first half of this presentation with your slides. That might open their eyes a little bit.
Well, the guy who wrote that article, Hiroshita Kita, Kita. Look him up and look his articles up, and then show that to your guy, because that's the one that showed the reaction to the fungus was the 3 inflammatory mediators.
Yeah, we'll try to.
That was a long time ago, and he's still in the lab working somewhere. He's a smart guy.
Yeah, but we'll try to get that article linked for you guys if we can.
Yeah.
Anne is asking, so you answered this basically in the last conversation. Anne is asking, do you have sinus symptoms if colonized? So did I interpret that right, that you said you don't necessarily have, you can be colonized even if you don't have sinus symptoms?
Well, yeah, because I mean, it's normal, just like it's normal in the colon. The nose has got a bunch of bacteria in it all the time. That's normal. So staph is a normal inhabitant of the nose. Almost everybody's got staph in their nose, but most of them are methicillin resistant or multi-drug resistant. But it's staph and a number of others. It's like a plethora of other stuff. So just because you're colonized, like I said, you don't need treatment. I would say if you got purulence or pus coming out of your nose, discolored green and yellow stuff, yeah, you need to be treated. But if you don't, you don't.
Yeah. Kimberly or Alex, do you have anything to add? I'm looking for maybe one more question.
I have a question for Dr. Dennis, actually. I heard I think I understand what you're saying is that if you are sensitized, and have allergies to these molds, you're going to have a worse situation. And do you see any benefit to the sublingual immunotherapy that is offered by different academies?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's very useful if they're in a safe environment. So if you don't get out of the environment, it doesn't matter what you do. You can name it, it's not going to work. Why? It's too much volume. Why? Because you're breathing 3,000 gallons of air a day and you're only washing out with 8 ounces. So it's like being in the shower and trying to dry off while in the shower. You're not going to be able to get dry. That's the main thing to focus on.
And one other question too is, I think that for the majority of the people that I've seen are not able to necessarily remediate their environment, and especially people who are in rental situations and don't own and can't afford to move.
Right.
What would you say is would you advocate the recurrent use of your fogging as a temporary fix to help them recover a little bit while they're still living in that environment?
I think all these things are helpful tools, but the chief thing is you got to get out of it. No matter what it takes, you got to get out of it. Yes, the fogger will bring the counts down in the air and the candles to zero, but the stuff's still contaminated. Now, the fogger will last for 3 or 4 days, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer. If you just keep doing it and have candles, you will massively knock the counts down. But if you're washing your clothes in a moldy washing machine, then you're sleeping in it, your face is in the pillow, and you're wearing it. So it's going to be hard to have the needle move in that situation. So you got to have a reprieve. You got to have a safe place so you can get the counts out of your nose, because these guys are inside your nose. They're multiplying. They're very busy, and they're colonizing everything, and they're producing mycotoxins, which are going to your brain. So if you've got it in your urine, you've got it in your brain. So I think rather than talking about mold, I think it's better to talk about saving your brain from poisoning. Is it worth your brain to move? If it's not, you should stay there. You know, it's not. If you're in a really bad environment, you can throw everything in your bag at them. You're not going to help them long term. You know, and they got to get that through their head. It's not elective to stay there if you're having trouble walking and your memory's shot. You don't know what your name is. You know, you're not going to ever help those people unless you get them out of it.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want to help everybody, but you got to tell them the truth. Say they don't have any money. There's a bunch of people who have zero money. They get a tent and live outside. Whole congregation of them in the desert. It's just a question of how bad they want to get well. You know, it's not really about money. It's about will to get well. If they told you, you know, if you can get in a mold-free environment, you get a check for $5 million, you think they'd move out? Yeah, they'd move out the same day. Well, your brain's worth more than that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we've reached our hour today, guys. You had some amazing questions. We'll try to answer as many of those as we can, maybe in the comments. Kimberly and Alex, did you have any questions that you saw that you want to answer or think would really benefit our community?
I would just add, just like Dr. Donald Dennis is saying, start with your environment, right? Clean up your environment. If you haven't done that, examine your environment. And then this is like levels of things, right? So we can try the silver, we can maybe try some antifungals, and if you need more, Dr. Dennis is there. Absolutely. So just
yeah.
That.
Yeah, and if you don't think you're ready for Dr. Dennis yet, we're here at the clinic. Some people don't know that we have a remote health consulting clinic. We offer 2 tiers of support, and we are open to international clients, so we can kind of get you on those foundational pieces. We can help you look at the environmental piece to see, are you still living in mold? We can do that initial real-time lab testing for the mycotoxins, because as he was saying, if it's in your urine, you're most likely seeing it in other places of your body. And then we can work on that stabilization so that when you're ready for those next steps, your body's able to handle that aspect of healing. Kimberly and Alex, do you have any parting words, or Dr. Dennis, do you have any last words of wisdom for our audience today?
I just say 2 things. Get your diet right, you know, all the bread, rice, potatoes, and sweets, and get your air right. And some of these things, the tools you can use are important, but some of the biggies are old cars and washing machines. Even if you get your environment right, if they're still bad, you're still going to be sick.
Yes. Can you let us know the name of the washer that you recommended?
It's called a Speed Queen TC5, Speed Queen.
And then Carolyn's asking, this is for the front loader, for those who can't afford to purchase the new washer quite yet. Does the EC3 laundry help with that?
Yeah, the EC3 laundry would be helpful if you put about a quarter of a bottle in there and put small load hot water, and then get it started. And then after it starts for a while, put it on pause and wait an hour and then finish it. That'll help. But a lot of times it's behind a rubber grommet and it's all black and it's on the other side of the drum, and it's a huge burden. It's a lot of black stuff in there. So I had one guy who's a mechanic for washing machines was a patient. And he said, I can handle this. So he took it in the front yard, took it all apart, and industrial steam cleaned it. It was sparkling like it came out of the showroom. And in a month, it was back.
Wow.
So my point is, it's got a defect that holds the water.
Yeah.
So you really got to get rid of those things and not try to medicate around them, you know. Yes, you can put stuff inside of it, but it's so much volume in there. You're still going, even with all that, you're still going to get some problems.
Yeah, I just want to throw this last testimonial up for you, Dr. Dennis. Lindsay from YouTube is saying, do everything he says. I'm a living testimony. So.
Hi, Lindsay.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
Right. She did all the hard stuff. She did it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, we can tell you and guide you and educate you as much as we can, but you have to do the work yourself. You have to be empowered to actually want to improve your health.
Well, some people, you know, they're so damaged neurologically that they really need a helper. They are unable to make proper decisions and do it for themselves, and they can't remember anything. So they really need somebody to help them.
Yeah.
I've got patients like that. And it's sad because you get an older person who lives alone, who doesn't even have any family, and that's a real sad situation. They really need some attention and some help just to get things going right, you know.
Yeah, it's a great point that we aren't meant to do this alone. So while you have to kind of implement the work, if you're physically or mentally unable to do that, to have that support person there to help guide you. And then, you know, our teams in your office are there to help guide people on those aspects of, like, what do I do next? Where do I go from here?
What we need is a support nurse team that does both the environmental piece and the medical piece, like a home health care nurse. That would help a lot of people. Yeah. Just get everything organized, lay out everything, put things down they're supposed to do. But, you know, there are millions of people who just can't help themselves out there. And it's hard to deal with that because they can't get out of it because they don't have enough brain power to get out of it, for one thing. So it's hard to deal with. They really need somebody to help them.
Yeah. Do you have any parting words?
You know, just to dovetail on what Dr. Dennis was saying, is that even if you're one of those people, if you keep at it, little improvements can move your brain along, and and you physically can get better. And there's always new things that are coming up. And, you know, getting better is sometimes a long process, but it can happen. And you need to find people that can help you along the way, and you need to do the work too. But I've seen thousands of people get their lives back by going through this kind of a protocol.
Oh yeah, yeah. And also, if you can find some support from someone who's been through it, is helpful because they know how to do it.
Yeah, majority of people on our team have experienced some type of mold in their lives that they're dealing with. So our team gets it. We feel the pain that this community feels on a daily basis. All right, Dr. Dennis, thank you so much for being here with us and rolling through the technology challenges with us today. We so greatly appreciate your time and knowledge and expertise. And Kimberly and Alex, thank you so much for being here.
And next time we can figure out how to show me on here.
Yeah, we'll get better and better.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Nice to see everyone. Or nice to hear everyone.